That is one way. Oh, okay. I guess I have to say got it. Okay, and that is one way to defend our democracy is through free and fair elections and the vote. And that is why we founded SEEDMN Giving Circles on January 17th. Why SEED? Well, it stands for States Elections Empower Democracy. Also, SEED seems a perfect metaphor for new beginnings and growth on the state level. We believe that most of the issues that affect our lives are decided in states' legislatures. Okay, Becky, next slide. And we just wanted to introduce ourselves on another level. This is not our first rodeo, our first trip around the block. We have been active for at least 6 years on many different campaigns. 3 of us met on the Phillips campaign for Congress, and you know how well that went. So we're really pleased about that. Hope this one goes as well. All righty, next. Our agenda is simple. Why states matter. The States Project will let you know that. Situation and problems in Minnesota. Well, you know what they are. It's divided state government. The good news is we have divided state government. The bad news is we have divided state government. So the solution is to get us a DFL majority, all blue in 22. Getting there, we're hoping that you will agree that the States Projects and SEEDMN Giving Circle is the way to do it. So we hope that you join us and help grow SEEDMN. And we'll have question and answers at the end, which you can stay for or not, as you like. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to Melissa Walker. She's the director of Giving Circles. And I think I have to do a disclaimer. I was talking to her and I said, why are you in your bedroom on the floor? And she said, well, it was the first days of the pandemic and she was so excited. She wanted to get this out. And so she just took the opportunity to do what she was able to do. And I'm in my bedroom too. So that's the way it goes. Okay, Melissa.
I'm Melissa Walker. I'm the director of Giving Circles at Future Now Fund. And what I want people to know is that when you do this work of community organizing, you can watch policies change. You can watch lives change. You can tend to democracy. In December of 2016, I attended a holiday party where I heard then New York State Senator Daniel Squadron speak. He said a lot of things that night, but the thing he said that really turned my head was this. If you and your friends can get $100,000 together, you can flip a state chamber from red to blue. I had no idea what he meant, but it sounded like something possible. And I started gathering friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, and talking about state legislatures. Gathering in living rooms and talking about state legislatures meant that I had to learn about state legislatures. And what I learned blew my mind. I found out that state capitals control almost everything that I care about, from education funding to environmental policy, to healthcare, to civil rights, to voting rights. State legislatures control all those kitchen table issues that we all care so much about, and they also determine who goes to Washington, D.C. From 2010 to 2016, we lost nearly 1,000 state seats under President Obama as we stared at the White House. And people's lives got bad because of those losses. Places defunded education. States put in right to work laws. Things like the bathroom bill passing in my home state of North Carolina, which broke my heart. Stand your ground gun laws in Tallahassee, which then spread to 20 some odd other states. Republican majorities took over state by state by state by state. I also started to understand that issues like the water in Flint, Michigan were not a Washington, D.C. problem. That's a Lansing problem. When people who lived in those states had their education defunded, lost benefits, had their healthcare cut, they didn't say, oh, that must be my state legislator. They blamed the president. They blamed Washington, D.C. State legislatures often operate in darkness. And little did we know that the roots of Trumpism were being seeded in state capitals. States are meant to be laboratories for democracy. They're meant to be marriage equality, going from state to state to state to federal. They're meant to be healthcare, going from Hawaii to Massachusetts to becoming the ACA. They're meant to be experimental places where we can improve lives and then improve more lives. But right now, state capitals are laboratories for voter suppression bills and bans on choice. So when my circle got together, we did end up raising that $100,000 and a little more. We worked in Virginia in 2017 to support 10 candidates, 9 of whom won their seats. The balance of power got so close in Virginia, just 1 seat away from Democrats taking the majority, that in 2018, Virginia expanded Medicaid and 400,000 people got healthcare who wouldn't have otherwise. My giving circle felt incredibly connected to that policy, and we wanted to see more outcomes. In 2018, we worked in North Carolina, where we were able to help break a supermajority, and Arizona, where we were able to flip 4 House seats from red to blue and establish the closest balance of power since 1966. In 2018, I worked with a bunch of giving circles. 2 of them ended up raising money to help flip the Maine State Senate with a candidate who won by 200 votes. Maine banned conversion therapy. They raised teacher pay. They passed paid leave. Those giving circles were connected to those policy changes and to the lives of millions of Mainers that changed because of the work they had done. It is often cheaper to change the balance of power in a state legislature than it is to flip a single competitive congressional seat. Take that in. When we change the balance of power in state legislatures, we will get congressional seats for free. The return on investment of working in state legislatures is huge. I am not someone who can hand giant checks to politicians, but I am someone who can gather my network and little by little come up with an impactful fundraising total that can change the balance of power in a state chamber. And so are you. You in this Zoom room at this moment in time, you in your living room, you on the phone with a friend, you with a few people joining you in a leadership team to do this work, you can make the difference. It is the most inspiring thing I've ever done. It is the most meaningful thing I've ever worked on. When I watch what's going on at the federal level, I ground myself in the knowledge that I am doing this work and that this work matters. It's an incredible feeling. It is about community organizing. It is about learning how to bring attention and resources to something that you care about, and it can have real impact on our country. If you organize your community to help flip a state chamber, you can watch policies change, you can watch lives improve, and you can tend to democracy.
Okay, so you saw, she gives such a compelling case, but you saw Future Now. And this is our organizational layout that a lot of people are interested in how it works. So Future Now is really the umbrella organization, and it funds, it gathers money, it has donors. You can find out who the donors are on Open Secrets. And it funds the States Project, the Lawmaker Network, and the PAC for America's Future. States Project then giving circles give States Project our money, and they select organizations and select candidates. The Lawmakers Network picks up after the elections to help to pass really good laws that will stand. Okay, now I'm throwing it to Paula, I think.
Yeah, Becky, can you back up to the previous slide, please? Thanks. Just a few more things about the organizational layout. As Melissa Walker described in the video, the States Project is really dedicated to helping elect Democratic governing majorities in state legislatures. And they do this work, as Melissa talked about, mainly in 2 ways. They help state parties and groups strengthen their organizations and infrastructure, specifically for state legislative campaigns. And this helps all Democrats that are state legislative candidates. In addition, the state's project selects and gives additional assistance to a smaller number of the strongest Democratic candidates in the most flippable or closely contested districts. And Becky's going to talk more about the details of that in a moment. In terms of structure, the state's project, as Colleen said, is under the umbrella of the Future Now Fund, along with the State Lawmaker Network and the PAC for America's Future. The state's project work is funded by Future Now and the PAC for America's Future, but its work in the states is also funded and powered by over 100 giving circles, if you can, which you see the little circles by the state's project. Each giving circle is organized by volunteers and dedicated to a single state. And 100% of the donations to each individual giving circle goes towards the state's project work on the ground to help Democrats win. None of the money donated to giving circles goes to national overhead or administration. It all goes to work in the states. And the giving circles dedicated to Minnesota, including ours, have already raised over $200,000 for Minnesota's 2022 state legislative elections. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this? What's the state of play in Minnesota? As many of you know, we currently have a divided state legislature, and as Colleen mentioned in her introduction, the DFL holds a slim six-seat majority in the State House of Representatives, but the Republicans hold an even slimmer three-seat majority in the state Senate. Slide, please. So what does that mean? On one hand, divided government is preventing truly awful Republican laws like those in Texas, Georgia, and elsewhere from happening in Minnesota. But it also means that legislation that could significantly help improve lives, increase equity, and address climate issues just isn't happening here. Republicans in the state legislature have blocked bills and policies in recent years that would, for example, have given Minnesota 100% clean energy by 2040, or would help prevent gun violence through expanded background checks and red flag laws. And in this current session, Republicans have introduced bills for a Texas-style abortion ban, to completely eliminate state corporate income taxes, multiple anti-vax bills, and a copycat anti-CRT bill that could require teachers to out LGBTQ students to their parents, among other things. So on a personal note, I want to say that I lived in Russia in the 1980s and 90s, and I've watched as post-Soviet Russia's early hopes for democracy were essentially strangled in the crib by oligarchs and authoritarians over the past 25 years. And I've been horrified to see Putin and his methods applauded by many Republicans, including some in Minnesota. So I really shudder to think what could happen if Republicans win majorities in both the state house and Senate in Minnesota. Already this year, they're introducing unnecessary voter ID laws, legislation, and other bills to suppress voting access. My fear, and I think those of the other people who organize the circle with me, is that we could see a rollback of voting rights and election safeguards, similar to what's happening in Republican-controlled state legislatures across the country. Next slide, please. So we got together and we saw that the only way we could make meaningful progress in the various areas that I just touched on and so many others is to hold the DFL majority in the Minnesota State House of Representatives and to flip the Senate so that we have a governing majority. So the four of us initially started looking for what we could do to help make this happen beyond simply helping our state district candidates or giving money to the DFL. But we learned it wasn't going to be easy. First of all, because redistricting meant that all 201 seats in the state legislature are up for election this year. The other reason it's not easy is because we Democrats and our state parties are really playing catch up. As Melissa Walker said in the video, for many years, Republicans have been far more focused on state legislative elections than Democrats have. While we've been staring at the White House, they out-organized, out-strategized, and out-funded us at the state and local levels. So that's where the states project comes in. And that's what I'm going to flip it over to Becky to describe that in a lot more detail.
Hi, Becky. And as you can tell, we are very pleased with the work that we have seen the states project do. And so I'm going to share just a couple more facts about the states project with you right now. Currently, the states project is working in 17 states in the nation. However, Minnesota is only one of 6 where money is being raised right now. And as Paula just told you, money from the Minnesota giving circles and money from other giving circles across the nation are being funneled into our state legislative campaigns to the tune of so far $200,000. Now, a little more then about the states project. Why did we choose them? And here are the bulleted points, and I'm going to share some facts with you about each of these bulleted points. We like them because they put early money into our state. They are coming in, they've already been in Minnesota. They will hire staff for this 2022 election cycle. And as I'm sure you understand, the earlier we get the staff on the ground, the better it is for our candidates. They will hire what they call multi-district staffers. There are going to be 9 campaign managers and 9 field organizers. And each of those people will be covering 3 districts. So at this point, it sounds like the states project will focus on a maximum of about 27 districts in Minnesota. They will help to build evidence-based tactics. Those are tactics that the states project has used over the past few years and in other states that they know works. Also, these staff people on the ground will help the targeted districts execute best practices. It's not just about throwing money at it, it's about using the money well and wisely. And lastly, I want to say about this, that this early money is more impactful than late money, as I think I already mentioned. And also it will build community around a candidate. Just think of the Dean Phillips candidate. That campaign has such incredibly strong community. And I have friends today who've come from that environment. Okay, now what else? The states project comes in and does candidate vetting and accountability. So they will come in and do video interviews with candidates, and they ask them to address 7 policy areas. I won't bother to read them all to you, but they find out what these candidates' plans are around good jobs, affordable health care, equal opportunities, clean air, water, and energy, and a few more. They look to elevate underrepresented voices in the chambers, which of course will lead to more perspectives in each chamber. Seems to me the more perspectives we have, the better decisions we're gonna come up with. Also, the states project will talk to spending partners in the state of Minnesota to get third-party feedback about the candidates, not just the caucus, not just the DFL caucus, but they're gonna reach one level farther out of the ring. Now, talk about the candidate accountability. They will look at how much money the candidate has raised, how much outreach they do and plan to do. They actually even ask the candidates how many doors they intend to knock each week. And they're going to keep the candidates accountable. If a candidate starts to flag on doing those things, they will be encouraged to step up to do all that they can do. Supporting candidates in winnable districts. So a lot of that stuff I just talked about relative to vetting the candidate will help point them to those winnable districts, because you have to have a dynamite candidate in a district that is winnable. And in addition to that, the caucus itself must demonstrate that they will quote unquote show up in the district, that they'll help the candidate, that they will sponsor door knocking, phone banking, and other events. One of my favorite things about our Seed Minnesota Giving Circle as part of the States Project is that it's a grassroots movement. And that's what we're seeing right here and now. We've invited our friends, and we are all pulling in the same direction. And what that does for me is, number one, it makes me feel like as a common person, as a common woman, common man, common person, I can make a difference when I am allied with a whole bunch of other grassroots people. And then it also creates community. I learn about and get acquainted with new friends, and it creates a feeling of community that really buoys my enthusiasm and my willingness to keep working. Okay. Last is that 100% of the money that we give to the Seed Minnesota Giving Circle will go to these targeted candidates in targeted districts which are winnable. And the way that the the States Project is able to do that is because they do separate fundraising to cover their overhead. And Colleen mentioned that you can see who those fundraisers are, or those donors are, on Open Secrets. All right, now our Senate Minority Leader, Melissa Lopez Franson, is a big supporter of the States Project and also Seed Minnesota. So let's see what she has to say.
Hi, everyone. I'm Senator Melissa Lopez Franson, the leader of the Senate DFL caucus. I'd like to thank you for attending today's program and encourage you to join SEEDMN and the States Project in helping the Senate DFL win key races, flip the state Senate, and make the Minnesota Legislature all blue in 22. We're only 3 seats away from a Democratic majority in the state Senate. We can definitely do this. Let's talk about how. Here at the Senate DFL caucus, we are working closely with the States Project to run cutting edge and forward-thinking campaigns. 100% of the funds raised by the States Project giving circles like SEEDMN go directly to Minnesota campaigns and candidates. Those funds help the DFL support additional staff and build campaign infrastructure. They also help us access valuable expertise and best practices drawn for the States Project's work around the entire country. When I was first elected and I flipped a targeted race from red to blue, I didn't get my campaign staff until June. This year especially, we can't wait that long. And because of organizations like the States Project and their giving circles like this one, we've already been able to bring staff on board in key districts. The earlier the investment in these campaigns, the more it pays off. We can't do it alone, so we rely on grassroots donors like you to help us do it. We've seen that with Republican-controlled Senates in Minnesota, crucial legislation just can't pass. Republicans aren't governing, they're obstructing. All of the values that we as Minnesotans hold, like high-quality education, clean water, and safe and thriving communities, are in jeopardy until we have a Democratic Senate. Your support is crucial. Again, thanks for attending today. I urge you to join SEEDMN and also to donate directly to DFL candidates in your district and around the state. We're all in this together. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Sorry.
Hi.
Now I'd like to introduce to you Lila Louie, who was a participant in a previous presentation just like you, and she and a friend came forward with an exciting new idea for growing our trees. So Lila, will you take it away, please?
Sure, thank you, Becky. This is the 4th presentation I think I've seen like this, and I still get excited and inspired by it. You guys do a really great job. Tamara Nelson and I hosted a presentation from Susie Lewis after attending one of these, and we got so excited by the mission of Seed Minnesota and the passion of what I call the core 4 of Becky and Susie and Colleen and Paula, that we wanted to do something to help extend the community. And so we, of course, donated first. That's always priority number one. And then we turned to the question, how could we help create and support more community and extend the community spirit that Becky was talking about. And so we've come up with this way of extending the community. And so we'd like to invite any one of you on this call to either become a pod representative, a seed pod rep, or to join one of the pods that we are forming. And so usually, so often what happens with this is as we're starting out, so a pod would start with a presentation, and all it asks of you is to get your community and your friendship work group together. And then one of the core four would present to your group. And then you as a pod rep would join other seed pod reps to meet monthly, and we'll find ways to support and energize our respective pods and take it through till the election. So if you'd like to join a pod, if you'd like to be a pod rep, we'd really like you to reach out to Tamara and I as we try to help support the core four. And Tamara is just gonna share a little bit more about what we're thinking the pods might do.
Next slide, Becky.
Okay, so what would you do if you were part of a pod, if you went ahead and built a pod? There are different kinds of activities you can get involved in. I think one of the first is to continue generating donations at the grassroots level. At this point, because we don't actually have our candidates identified, that might be a big area to focus on. I know within our pod, there are people saying, hey, I'd like to create a pod. I know a group of people who would be interested. So that would be a way to, get another pod going and generate donations. And that's what organizing the new pods is all about. Once candidates are identified, then we can get information from Seed Minnesota that will help us know what to do to help the campaigns. And so the pod representatives would, be communicating with Seed Minnesota, the core four, and identifying, okay, what are the needs of the campaigns? We would take that down. The leaders of the pods would take that down to the pod level and identify things that people can do to actually help at a grassroots level, boots on the ground kinds of things. Another thing that was talked about that pod people might want to get involved with, some people have issues that may overlap with those of candidate. And so that might be something that you could be doing as a pod while you're also supporting the candidate. And then the pods, just like I think it was Becky said, it's just an opportunity to build community, to expand our friendships, our relationships. I know for me, when I was listening to this, I thought, I'd like to do this as part of a group. I'd rather not just be a single person, doing this kind of work. Now, do you want to go to the next one? And then once there are going to be some people within the pod who are really, really interested in being, say, pod leaders. And so what will they do? They will report, they'll form a group that meets, say, monthly, and they will be sharing progress, insights, and other information with each other. And also, sending information, questions up to the core team, and then also sharing down to the pod members, ideas, information we get from the SEEDMN group. So that's really what we have envisioned, and we can take questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Next slide, and I'll be really brief and just wrap us up here because the pod whole initiative is very exciting and fun. I am Susie Lewis. For those of you who don't know me, I was a late bloomer in terms of doing this work. Woke up like so many in 2016 and got involved. I've only worked on presidential campaigns and worked on the Dean team for Dean Phillips' campaign. And we're really, I think, passing on that philosophy that we learned about stay hopeful, keep doing the work, keep moving. Don't let this get you down. When you do the work, it feels really good. I didn't pay attention to state politics at all till I got very involved in the gun sense prevention. That's my passion, common sense gun laws to get passed. And I think it was Paula that said to me, she said, Susie, nothing's going to happen when the Republican Senate won't even bring these issues up. They don't even bring them to the floor, let alone vote on them. And so it's just flat. It's not going to happen. And so I realized that this was the most important thing to do first. This is where I want to give my energy, my resources, is to flip this Senate and hold the House so we can get these issues done. So we did launch Seed Minnesota. That's what this is about. And we have pretty much fallen in love with the state's project. You just heard it all why. Focusing on winnable candidates. I love that we will quantify, we will vet. They have the research, they have the model, they know how to do it. We're not giving our money to a black hole here. This is something where that is focused and is structured, and they have done it before very successfully. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, here is how we are growing. Since January 17th, we have about $14,000. We're excited since it's all so new. We are educating ourselves and hopefully educating many of you as we grow. And that's the whole point here. And as you've already heard, the grassroots is so exciting and fun and something that we can do and do together. Now we need your help. If you can donate, and the donations, everyone, are going from $25 to $1,000. Whatever you can do, we appreciate and want you to become a member and part of us. You will be able to track our progress. You will get email updates. You will get a monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, you'll have lots of information about what's going on. And eventually, when the candidates are selected, you'll have volunteer opportunities. So whether it's your group or your pod or yourself individually, however you prefer to work, we will have opportunity where here it really makes sense to do the volunteer, because here is a flippable candidate that we can win. And I am really excited about that part. So our goal here, we are going to raise, you can move that one up for me, Becky, at the $100,000 for the campaign. As you heard, and I want to repeat it because it's important, a big piece for me of Giving Circle also is that we get money from other giving circles. And what that means is in California, they don't have to worry about this, and they have giving circles. Their giving circle is to help states like ours, and that's what they're doing. That's where that 200,000 comes from. But it also kind of feeds from the bottom when they say, well, Minnesota and Seed has been born, and these people are really working hard and building community and spreading it. That's incentive for other giving circles to help us. So we need you, and we need your help with this. And the other thing, and the next slide, please, and I'll be able to wrap up, help us grow. You heard it from Tamara and Lila beautifully about their whole invention of the pod concept and the pod reps. And if you want to become a pod rep, bring your friends, you will meet monthly. And again, we are educating ourselves and others. Please have conversations with folks, share the information. Invite others. We are happy to host a private event. We do these public presentations monthly. And we invite you to invite us or call us or contact us if you want our help, or you can host your own, however you want to help us grow. We appreciate. Tomorrow or the next day, you will all be getting an email from us. Please watch for it, from Seed Minnesota. That will have the donation link on it. That will have this particular slide presentation. That will have info. I think there's a link from Giving Circle about them, as well as some Q&As that they have put together if you have, that you will get. It will also have all of our emails on it and our email addresses, and we want you to contact us, and we really appreciate it. We thank you. You can go to the next, I think, final slide, where we will thank you and say to folks who need to leave, thanks for coming. Well, you'll hear from us. We're going to we look forward to having you join us. This is exciting and fun, and please do. And those of you who can stay, we're going to have Q&A now, and I think you can unmute yourselves and we can all look at faces. And I think Paula or Becky, are you going to facilitate some Q&A? You can just ask the question, you can put it on chat, you can raise your hand, however you want to do that. So would you all unmute? I see some folks are still muted.
Sure, we'll roll with it. Go ahead, Paula.
Oh, no, but I think Becky's going to moderate, and but I just placed in the chat some links for you if you want to copy paste them, or like Susie said, they'll be coming to you tomorrow in an email as well. But if you stay on for the chat and want to check some of these out, they're there.
I think I saw Mark, Becky. I saw Mark put up his hand.
Okay, and also let's go to Mark and then Cindy.
Hello, I've got a couple questions. How do the candidates know about Seed Minnesota, or do you go out and contact the candidates themselves in this process? And the other thing is, do you have a goal of how many candidates how many campaigns you're going to support? And the other thing I want to ask is about, when is the money given out? Now, knowing right now that candidates don't need to file until like mid-May. So.
Wow, Mark.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a lot. Let me start out here, and then some of my colleagues will probably kick in. Number one, the States Project is right now reaching out to start candidate interviews, and some of us are involved. And not necessarily involved in our own state. Colleen and I have assignments to start interviewing some candidates in other states. So they do all that candidate information gathering. And then that information goes back to the States Project Political Committee. They combine all that they have learned together with their data analytics to help them make a decision about which districts they believe are winnable. Now, this is also going to be affected by the endorsement. So April 9th and 10th, we've got Senate district conventions. So once we know who the DFL is endorsing and who States Project is endorsing, we'll be able to join forces with the DFL and do campaigning. Hopefully, Mark, those are going to be the same people. How do they get their money? The States Project decides how they are going to allocate money to the candidates that they've chosen. And let's see, I was going to say something else about that. We have to know who those are first. And oh yes, here's what I was going to say. In Minnesota, there are special campaign laws in Minnesota, and a tranche of $200,000 came into Minnesota in January. But now they are disallowed by state campaign laws to send money into Minnesota until May. So they're not allowed to pump that money in during the legislative session. So we've got some time now to get organized and figure out where we're going to put our effort. I forget the third question you asked.
How many? I'll take that one, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay. There is not a specific number of how many campaigns will be financed and how many campaigns will be sponsored. It depends on the candidate and the district. The thing I love about the States Project is it's laser focused on winnable candidates in flippable districts. That means maybe not your favorite candidate, but candidates that will make a difference. We're not just throwing money into lost causes, into states that or districts that are so red, no matter who couldn't win in those states. And by the way, in the vetting process that Becky and I are getting involved in, we just talk to candidates, all candidates for the Senate, for instance, in Maine, and they decide whether they want help from the state's project. They have to sign an application. So, and they have to pass their kind of rigid requirements. So, does that help, Mark? Did I?
Yeah, at the Minnesota level, do candidates need to, you're looking for winnable and flippable districts. So you'll be contacting the campaigns then, or the candidate.
Yeah.
Rather than the candidate coming into you asking to be funded.
Right, and then
so to speak.
and then they can decide whether they want that help or not. I mean, there are some very, very strong candidates. They may not need help outside their own resources.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cindy?
Hi, everyone. I was curious about the flippable districts. So Becky, you had mentioned about doing the data analysis to determine which of those districts are flippable. I'm curious, what is also some of the other criteria that they'll be looking at? Obviously, if a district is so red and so entrenched that it's not, but what is some of the other criteria they're looking at?
I'm grinning from ear to ear because Cindy Mogg was one of my Six Sigma black belt colleagues. As a matter of fact, she was the master black belt. Cindy, we don't know what all those data analytics are, and that is purposeful on the part of the state's project. They do not wish to telescope to the opposition all the ways that they are going to evaluate these districts. But here's what, and I'm not speaking for state's project now, but here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they're going to go into these various districts. They're going to go all the way down to the precinct level and see how those precincts have voted in the past. I think they'll look at age, they'll look at all kinds of demographics that will point them toward what they think is going to be winnable. I'm going to look to my colleagues to see if anybody else has.
I will say something of what I think, Cindy, about that. I think that they will. They have said they'll go where there were slim margins. So forget about where the Republican won by 25 points and it's all red. They're not going to go into the heavy blue either, where it's looking like it's safe. Where there were slim margins has been talked about in past races. And I think also a lot about the candidate vetting has to do with candidate fit, candidate charisma, how that candidate fits for that particular district. And I think it's all piled together. No, that if that helps, I think that's what it is.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh.
Any other questions?
How many people?
Mark?
I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
How many deciders are there? How many people are there? Is it 6 of you that do the deciding for Minnesota?
No,
Oh, good God, no.
no.
We will do some vetting. We will do some vetting of
volunteers.
candidates in Minnesota, but we are not the deciders. The state's project it's pretty much has all of the analytics to make those decisions, along with the DFL, by the way. And that's an important piece of it. They work very closely with the DFL. They are not the DFL, but they work closely with the DFL. I mean, they can choose a candidate, and if that candidate doesn't really perform up to snuff, doesn't do outreach, doesn't have a volunteer base, isn't trying to collect money, they can say goodbye, which I don't think the DFL does or should do probably.
Right. And I think also, just to add to that, Mark, we did a lot of vetting ourselves with who are these people. The state's project team, political team, makes the decision, and they hold that tight. And when you look at, and we can share who these people are, it's very impressive.
Okay.
And we're happy to be open. It's a very, and we were really careful, Mark, to make certain that these folks knew what they were doing. They had a positive history, and it's a very impressive group. We'd be happy to share, right, Becky?
Yes, absolutely. I just put that in the chat. I think there were 10 or so people on the political committee, and they have credentials that are quite impressive from Harvard on.
Tamara?
I wondered if you could clarify. All right, so they may not necessarily support the same candidate that is supported by the DFL. I thought that was the case, that it would be the same candidate. But if the candidate they think is top notch doesn't get endorsed by the Democratic Party, what would happen then?
My understanding is they support DFL endorsed candidates. Now, the DFL is supporting all candidates, obviously. They have to.
Okay. Yeah,
This is focused on winnable
okay.
candidates, but it's within, isn't that correct? I have other buddies, did I do that right? Okay.
Okay.
I think Carol has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So there's another initiative out there, Contest Every Race, which is probably getting down more local into your city council school board races. Is there any connection there at all?
No, this is
Okay.
all state legislator work, senators,
So,
House of
okay,
Representatives.
so but it's not about recruiting candidates.
It for the state, Senate and House, nothing to do with.
Okay,
city
but is
council.
it recruiting candidates? Like this Contest Every Race is recruiting candidates where there's an open seat.
No.
So in other words, they're going after and trying to find people to run.
Well, that is.
And it's DFL. I mean, it's DFL's working on that. So I'm just asking if there's any connection. It sounds like there isn't, because they're just trying to make sure there aren't any races that are uncontested,
Well,
which is great.
Well,
So
they're
that's
they're
good.
coordinated though with their DFL office.
Yes.
So
right.
they are bringing that up. They're kind of like, well, the way I think of as management consultants to the DFL office.
Okay.
To help them on the recruitment effort.
Right.
So
I
so
was
then
going to say that that they help the DFL find
Okay.
candidates, and
Okay.
the candidates they find, they make sure they're really good candidates in that area.
Sure. No, I okay. And then the other thing, so is this like a separate expenditure? So it's it's not necessarily going to be a coordinated campaign donations and that sort of thing. It's going to be separate donations, separate from a party donation.
Yes.
And that's one of the benefits to this, is that it's another approach to being able to, I love the whole concept, because it's really getting at the importance that, Emily's list is, early money is like yeast, and it really does make a difference. And I think that's the hard part about, campaigns, is that people don't seem to realize that the resources you have are the time element, your money, and then your number of people that you can get involved. And, I'm sitting here and, I can't write a check for $200,000, but I can write a check for 25. So I love the whole concept. I just, and so I'm in for the game, but I just have to figure out how do you build that out a little bit more. So.
Carol, I've got a little saying that States Project is the cherry on the flipping cake.
Well, and I think that's the other part that's really important to stress with people, because so many people are very anxious, that Biden's numbers are down, and
Yeah.
we really do get all worried about what's happening at the national level, and it matters. But if we don't make a difference in our state is going to start to look, heaven forbid, like Texas or something. I mean, I hope it won't go that bad. It can't, but it could. And the actuality with the Republicans constantly blocking any, even just the dialogues on some stuff is being blocked. So, I think it's really intriguing. It's just a matter of building that capacity. So, let's have at it, figure it out.
Carol, if I can just follow up, when you talk about capacity building, I think that's another thing that really attracted us to the state's project, because we've talked about, supporting a subset of individual candidates in flippable or winnable, closely contested districts. The other thing is that I think Melissa Franzen got at this a little bit, is that, the fact that they are kind of this, as Susie said, a kind of consultant or a coach for the DFL as it tries to strengthen its state organization, for state elections, because that hasn't necessarily gotten great attention. We focus either on congressional or we focus on, statewide governor elections. The individual state districts haven't gotten, in fact, I didn't know this before, and you maybe did, but most state legislative campaigns are run by non-professional volunteers.
Right. Right.
So that's why organizations embedding these staffs that can help multiple districts, or even campaigns and this extra help for individual campaigns, is so important to do that, as we hopefully help the state's project, help the DFL start building greater, strengthening its organizational capacity specifically for state legislative races. So that's something that's really attractive and attracted us as well.
So the only other thing that plays in for me is just the different messaging pieces that are out there. And one thing, I don't know if any of you, you probably have, but there's a book out there, The Power Worshippers, they're talking about the influence of the religious community and the Christian right, and what's all going on there. And to tell you the truth, it's terrifying. And it has a counter effect of money into campaigns and message into campaigns. And so, I'm sitting here as caring about our democracy. And I think that's what brings all of us, got us involved with Dean and got us involved with going forward. So we got a lot of work to do. And if we do nothing, we're just going backwards. So off my soapbox, done.
No, good, love it.
Yeah, love it.
But that book is terrifying if you haven't read it.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again, Carol?
The Power Worshippers. And we had a little influence happen in our community. So I'm just, it's unsettling. Yeah.
Okay, we probably should honor a 1 hour stop. So we've got about 4 minutes left. If anyone has further questions. Yes, sir. Mark.
Earlier it was mentioned that there'd be like 9 campaign managers and 9 field staff. Those would be volunteers that be working with the campaigns.
Not volunteers. These will be paid people, and the state's project talks about the fact that they want to come in and hire people with experience and pay them a living wage, so that maybe we're not just getting, I shouldn't say just, maybe we're not getting a sophomore in college who has some extra time, but they want to come in and hire experienced people.
They're managers, I believe, and then ground field workers. 9 of the managers, they're not necessarily campaign managers. I don't think. I think they're more work in infrastructure, and then there's the technology workers and the social media, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
Melissa called them campaign managers, 9 campaign managers and 9 field directors.
Oh, okay.
Each of them is going to potentially have 3 districts.
Okay.
She calls
Okay.
them multi-district staffers.
I see.
So-
I see. Okay.
Okay.
This is so important, so important. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And it's new for us, quite new for us. And we're just going to have to think about what we do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Dick.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you
for
all.
showing up, and we can all pull together, I think.
Yeah.
And then the last.
Want to join a pod or be a pod rep? Please reach
Yeah,
out to us.
there you go. Join a pod.
And if you have feedback about tonight's presentation, things that we can be explaining more clearly or better, we'd love to hear from you. You can reply to the email that you'll be sent in the next few days. And we definitely very much appreciate your being here and perhaps taking this journey with us.
Thank you.
Thank you and good
Everybody.
night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.